This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing the future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and my guest today is Rosemary Everton. Rosemary's story embodies the American dream in its truest form. From a small Delaware farm to becoming a successful entrepreneur, employing hundreds, she's turned adversity into achievement through faith, perseverance, and grit. In her book, Maid in America, Rosemary shares how resilience and purpose can transform challenges into lasting impact, and why she believes anyone with patience and determination can build a meaningful life. Rosemary, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Fine. Thank you, Joe.
Well, you're very welcome. And so thank you very much again for being here. And so I want to start by talking about the great state of Delaware. As someone from the New York metropolitan area, I was born and raised in North Jersey, worked in Manhattan. Delaware was basically the state you would drive through if you're going south. So, I eventually ended up...
never really stopped.
Yeah, I never stopped. So, even these years that I moved down in Charleston, South Carolina, making that trip, I kind of zipped through. And the great thing is, so my wife and I would always text our family, not me, while we're driving down. It would be like, we got through North Carolina, we got through Georgia. And then the funny thing is, when we do Delaware, it's literally 5 minutes. You're like, we got through Delaware. Okay, now we're in Maryland. So tell me about Delaware. For the idiots like me who don't know much about the state, what is Delaware like?
Southern Delaware is very rural. We have a lot of farming, but then you go to the beach and it's very much a beach town. In northern Delaware, it's really, we always call it the suburbs of Philadelphia. Northern Delaware really is sister to Philadelphia. So even the mentality is different in northern Delaware versus southern Delaware.
And you grew up on a farm in Delaware. So what parts of Delaware were you in with that farm?
We're in the western part of Delaware, southern Delaware, in Sussex County. But the good thing about it, where my husband loved fishing, is perfect. We're 45 minutes from the beach, from the ocean to go fishing, or we're 45 minutes from the Chesapeake Bay to go fishing. So we're right in between. Really, Delaware is part of an island since they put the C&D Canal in. Even though they call it a peninsula, it really is surrounded by water. But so growing up, it's like growing up on any farm. But I liken it more to living in Florida in the summer because it's so humid and all. And same with Florida, it's very flat, no hills other than northern Delaware, and so it's very similar to Florida without the palm trees.
Okay. All right. So now, luckily you wrote this book, because if not, someone was going to do a movie about you one of these days, because you talk about becoming a mother at 15. And
Yes.
So I grew of age of Teen Mom on MTV, where it was almost like they glorified teenage motherhood. And not that there's anything wrong, but it became actually like a cause celeb to be a teen mom. I'm assuming it was not a cause celeb when you were 15 and were pregnant.
No, it was a very hard decision, which is in my book. Very traumatic back then because girls didn't go to school if they were pregnant. Usually they would go to another school, go out of state. But my husband and I, we had talked about it. We had been going together for 2 years before any of this happened. And we really did want to get married. And we loved children. We wanted to have children. So, but at 15, logically, we should not have made it. Logically, there was no reason for Mike and I to make it. But we've been married, 54 years. We got married in 69. So I guess 56 years. Oh my gosh, I lose track of time. But we shouldn't have made it. All the statistics were totally against us. It was very hard. So here I am. I'm like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. I've got to tell my mom. My mom had just found out my sister was expecting, and they got married in July. So I waited till after my sister's wedding before I told her. I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to school in September. What do you mean you're not going to school? I'm pregnant. Oh my gosh. I thought my mom was going to kill me. And she's a very easygoing woman. And I think I broke her that day. It was very devastating because I was the youngest. So it was just, it was hard. It was hard. And I hated disappointing her. But Mike and I had already made up our mind what we wanted. And it is what it is.
And I'm out of curiosity because, obviously we've evolved. And so the idea of being a teen mother is not as, I mean, it's still dramatic, but not as dramatic as it was in the late 60s and 70s, even the 80s. What do you see now in the evolution of when you see teen mothers? Is it a stark difference from what it was when you were a kid having a
I
baby?
feel it is. Now, I'll tell you why. Because today, the girls depend totally on their mothers. They feel like their mothers are going to handle everything. Their mothers are going to take care of them. That there's not, when I was coming up, when you were pregnant and getting married, you went on your own. There was nobody, I mean, and the parents didn't expect you to stay at home. The parents were like, well, what are you going to do? And Mike had already started, he worked at a 5 and dime store, or Woolworths at the time.
Sure.
He had already started collecting things for the house, pots, pans, things like this. He would buy, as he got paychecks, he would actually put that aside and buy everything we needed to go on our own. And we never even thought it was possible to live with our parents, even though we had to stay with his parents a brief time because we had no place to go. We never thought that we were going to stay that way. I mean, it was never even an option to live with parents. And now today, the girls, the parents today have a tendency to take the responsibility away from the children, even when they're in their 20s. And I'm not sure that's good. I'm not sure that's good. But
Yeah, I'll share a story, Rosemary.
Go ahead.
I have a friend of mine. They were in their 50s. They were like, all right, we are living the best days of our life. They had like a 19-year-old daughter. Like, this is going to be great. We're going to be able to go on trips and vacation. They were still working, but then all of a sudden their daughter dropped the bomb that she got pregnant in the middle of her, I think, sophomore year in college. And now fast forward, Rosemary, I think now 3-4 years, they're essentially like the second parents. So,
Yes.
That's it's a great point of what you made of like the fact that I think the children, I don't know if the word expect that support, but it is more expected than it was back when you were a kid.
Yes. I don't even think they think. Now, I keep hearing that things are too expensive, that children can't go on their own. I've been doing some analysis on that. And with minimum wage in Delaware, minimum wage is now $15 an hour. And with minimum wage, if 2 people working, they can afford it. They don't realize it, but what's happened now, society with cell phones, internet, cable TV, that's what's cutting into their budget. They don't realize it. If they would get rid of nothing against cable TV, I don't mean
No.
but if they would get rid of the cell phones are so expensive, they can go with a simple flip phone. They don't have to. They need to learn to budget and to economize. They're not learning that. So many things are so freely given that they can't imagine doing without them. So when I was growing up, we didn't have access to that. We had a phone on a kitchen wall,
Right.
a black phone with a long cord. And that's how it was. I mean, we were lucky. We finally got a phone upstairs in our bedroom, but we were just lucky to be able to get that. If my father didn't want us to stop using the business phone, he never would have allowed it.
Well, somehow you survived and you've made
We
it up.
survived. Exactly.
You've done it. You pull it off. And I know we're living in very politically divisive times, but in the book you talk about, and I don't care what political party you're affiliated, when the president says your name out loud and it's in a very optimistic and very inspirational manner, you got to stand to attention. And so you talk about how George H.W. Bush, the first Bush, quoted your story in one of his speeches. So take us back to that moment, because like I said, who cares what affiliation, whether you voted for Bush or not? The fact that a president is talking about you, of all things, in a country of 300 million people. Tell me about that moment.
President Bush was very much into education. They were really pushing education. And so they had reached out to Groves because it's one of the first adult high schools in the nation, and they had reached out. I was so excited that they had reached out to Groves because I graduate. It's tough. It is tough going to night school, keeping a job, and raising a family. And I was so proud that they were being recognized. These students that work so hard, they don't have to go to night school. They choose to go to night school. So I wrote this letter to Mulvaney, who was the principal at the time, and I wrote this letter to Groves. And as soon as I finished writing the letter, I thought, something's funny about this letter. I actually sat down with my husband and my daughter both, because I said, guys, I've written a letter, what I've accomplished since graduating from Groves. And I said, I really have a funny feeling, and I want you to be aware that I think this is going to go bigger than I thought it was going to. I get these feelings. Same with business. I get these feelings on contracts and things like this. And so I sat them down. I said, look, guys, I know I've made it about me. Same with the book. I've made it about me, but I know I couldn't have done it without your help, because our eldest daughter at the time was helping in Mid-Atlantic Services too. And she was a big help in the office and so forth and so on. I said, I'm not trying to leave you out. I said, but I feel compelled to write this letter, so I'm going to write it. So don't feel left out. I'm not trying to leave you out. So I sent it into the school, and it was so funny. It was really weird because I said, I talked to the secretary at the school. She said, oh, we love your letter. And I said, oh, good. I'm glad you were able to get it. And I said, by the way, is it possible that we could get seats for the graduation speech when the president's going to be there? She said, oh, well, that's booked up. I don't think we can get any seats. I said, it's all right. Okay, well, if you get any, let me know. So then she called back like 2 days before. She said, okay, we found a ticket for you. I said, oh, good. I said, my husband and I can go? She said, I only have one ticket. I said, oh, all right. Well, how about if I let my husband go? Because he'd love to hear what the president has to say. I said, so how about if I let my husband go and I stay? So then, like, the next morning she called. She said, we found another ticket. You both can go. I'm like, this is odd. This is really odd. What, that just seems strange. And so we went into the auditorium. It holds 1,000 people. It was packed, and all the networks were in the lobby area. And it was just, oh my gosh, it was a hot day. Oh my gosh. And so we went in there and sat down, and there was a girl sitting, I say a girl, she was probably in her 20s, sitting next to me, jumping up and down like, oh, we're going to see the president. We're going to see the president. She was so happy and so excited. I said, okay, and I'm looking at the program and everything. And the president came out and to give his speech. And then he says, let me tell you about someone that isn't from this graduation class, that graduated quite a few years ago. Let me tell you about Rosemary Everton. Well, the blood just drained from my face. I just died. I'm like, what? And the girl next to me, I don't know. I don't know whether I gasped or what, but she looked at me. She said, oh, you're Rosemary, aren't you? You're Rosemary. And she started jumping up and down again. I'm like, oh my gosh. So after the speech, that I was flabbergasted. After the speech, I walked out into the lobby, and all the networks were like, what was it like? They were putting the microphones in my face and like, what did you think? And how, and my aunt, my husband's aunt, really, from California, called. She said, I saw you on TV all the way in California. I'm like, oh my gosh. So apparently I was on national TV too.
Wow, what a story. And it's so funny. So when you were writing this story, now this is way before the years of something going viral. And so it's funny that you had a feeling that, in essence, back then, it was what viral would be. It got into the hands of the president, and then obviously the president says something, and then everyone hears about it. What was it about? Because I know you write about, and it's obviously a big part of the book, about the story that you went through, being a teen mom, going to night school, and then starting your own business. But why did you think at that moment in your life? Because I know a lot of people, I think nowadays, we're all kind of surviving but not thriving. Why? And I'm sure at that point in your life, you're like, man, teen mom, I'm an entrepreneur, I've got a family, everything's great, I've fought against the odds. What did you think you wrote that would resonate with people who probably had no idea what Rosemary's story was?
Now, if you mean what was I trying to get across, it's that you by working hard, you can still succeed. You don't just sit down and say, I give up. Keep trying. All you have to do is just put effort forward. If you focus and put some effort forward, you can accomplish anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And so, what I was trying to say, look, I went to night school. I was a teenage mom and I kept on working. And now we have our own company. We have 200 employees and we've worked hard. And this is what we've accomplished. So, that I want to tell the students, yes, you're not just because you're going to night school, that doesn't mean your life's over with. You can do anything. It doesn't, just because you don't graduate from a normal high school and go on to college, doesn't mean that you won't get anywhere in life. You will, as long as you focus and put your nose to the grind. So that's what I was trying to say.
That's a great story. And so let's talk about that business which you launched. You became a cleaning company mogul. Let's go into that. Like, why, of all things you can do, a cleaning company?
We were at a point where neither one of us were working. And I had taken a job part-time when we were down in Raleigh, North Carolina. We went down there for a while to see, I needed to get away. This was after we had lost the triplets and all. And my husband and I needed to just get away. And so we were in Raleigh, North Carolina, and a girl came up to me and said, "Hey, do you have a job?" And I said, "No." She said, "How about cleaning? We clean," because Raleigh is in the triangle there, and they have so many different, you have students, you have professors, you have banking personnel, broker, you have so many different high-end people because the parents would pay for their college students to have their apartments cleaned. I got so tickled at that one too, because the parents were good for that. They would call us and say, look, can you? So I started working, it was called residential maid service. So I started working, I kept getting more and more houses. And Jackie Almond had the business. And I said, Jackie, I've got an idea. I think you can make this really grow. She said, oh, I don't want to grow. I'm like, well, I see potential here. I really see potential. She said, no, I don't want to grow. So I said, okay. So and then my husband's like, I really miss Delaware. How you can miss Delaware, I'm not sure, but we do miss Delaware. So talking about Delaware, I've got to mention this one thing. When I would go to Ocean City, Maryland, when I was a teenager in the summer and growing up, a lot of the kids, we would meet other kids there. And a lot of the boys and all would say, Delaware, what state is that in? So anyway, I had to bring that up since we were talking about Delaware before. So anyway, when I went ahead, did that, we moved back to Delaware. And I told my husband I wasn't moving back until he had a place to live and also had a job. And he did. Well, to make a long story short, he was laid off. That was a whole mess in itself. I didn't have a job. I had just had our youngest daughter, Beth. So I had a baby and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So what we decided to do, I got thinking about everything and I'm like, look, I was good at cleaning. And we lived we were renting a house next door to the shopping center. So they had a kitchen shopping center and I was baking cakes at the time. So I was talking to Pat Pender, and I said, we're thinking about starting cleaning. She said, can you do my house? Please, can you do my house? And I said, sure. Well, from there, then her brother wanted us. And then it just really, we had about 300 to 400 homes, if not close to 500 homes in no time.
Wow.
But Mike and I, it was just, we started with a van and a mop and a bucket, a vacuum. You made sure it had have a good vacuum.
Sure.
And it worked out really well. We started in the summer. My daughter was able to babysit our baby. Our eldest daughter babysat her. And then our son was about 9, I think, at the time. So Teresa our eldest daughter had to watch both the kids for the summer. And then I sent the younger one to daycare to keep on going. We had to hire, if we were going to make this work, you can't make enough just by yourself. Even though we had a good reputation. So what we started doing is hiring people. My husband would take one person, I would take another person, because we had to train them right. If we had a deep clean or a big cleaning, we would all four work together. So we started that way. And it's funny because Mike's father said, the worst mistake you're making is hiring your first employee. He said, you're making a mistake. If you can't do it yourself, then you don't want you. It's too many headaches. You won't like that. Which he was a DuPonter. He grew up in working in DuPont. So that was his mentality, that you'll never make it. So Mike and I were like, but we can't make it if we don't. In other words, the numbers weren't there. So we went ahead, and from there, we just started, we hired a few more. So we kept hiring people. So we probably had, I think, 4 teams going out a day.
Wow.
So that's how it started. But it started with a van, a mop, and a bucket, a broom, and a dustpan, and a vacuum cleaner.
A very good vacuum. You said it has to be a good vacuum. Yes.
It has to be a good vacuum. Trust me.
And so the funny thing is that, when I talk to entrepreneurs, whether it's a blue collar entrepreneur like yourself or a white collar, it all starts with subject matter expertise. So you were obviously a well-regarded in your industry because people were hiring you just via word of mouth. And what a lot of entrepreneurs run into is they got that down pat, but then the business side is where things get funky, especially when they're small. Oh, it's a smaller company. You're not only just the CEO, you're the CFO, you're the CMO.
For everything.
You're wearing a lot of hats. How did you develop the business side of running this company when you really did have experience running a company? How did that come in? Because this happens, most companies that fail, it's not because they get the actual expertise wrong, it's the other stuff that gets in the way. So how did you figure that out?
Well, and you're right on that. That's exactly what happens. My grandfather was a revenue. And of course, we grew up with my parents and my grandparents in the same house. We didn't think anything of it. But my grandfather taught me very well on keeping books and so forth and so on. My father had Baker Chemical and Equipment Company, and my grandfather the other kids didn't show much interest. So he would have me come over in the office and helping, and he would show me how to keep a ledger. We had 1 or 2 employees. He would show me how to keep the employees. So I had some background in that to begin with. I didn't know anything about payroll laws and that type of thing. Really, the state of Delaware helped me tremendously with that, because when I had a question like unemployment, I didn't even realize I was supposed to be paying Delaware unemployment. And so he actually was very nice and walked me through everything. And they told me about the forms and what to do. He was very nice. I could call him anytime. So that helped me tremendously. And then I went on and went into accounting, because cash flow is one of the biggest problems. And you're right on that. Our biggest problem right now is that we grow so fast that it's really hard to keep up. Even now, we've increased our sales $115,000 a month over the last 3 years. And that's just over the last 3 years. The demand's there. If people want their places clean, and when I say places, their offices, they're in their offices more awake than they are at home. So it's very personal to them. I took the same standard I have dealing with homes as I did in an office place. It is personal. They bring their personal plants, their personal pictures, everything. And so it is very personal to them. So we sort of trickled that down through the company. But so the accounting part is what hurts. I did go back. I wanted to learn more. I needed to know more about accounting, because I knew that's where my problem would be. So I actually have associate's degree in accounting, and I actually made the Outstanding Student Award.
Wow.
And it just because I wanted to know. And I think that helps too. They say don't make your hobby your job, but I don't know about that. I'm not sure, because I love numbers. I love working with numbers. So part of me's not sure whether you shouldn't make it a hobby. I can remember, this is a funny story. When I was, the storm of 1962 came through the Eastern Shore. Everybody's been talking about it lately because the nor'easter that just came across the shore here. Well, in 1962, in the March, we had a big storm come through. So the Sunday, the Baltimore Sun put out a story on the different storms. I asked my grandfather, I say, okay, I said, how can I predict which storm? And I had to be about 6, maybe 7. How do I predict when a storm's going to be coming again? I said, can I average out? So he actually showed me, he said, okay, here are the years. He showed me how to figure out the years between it. So I've always had, numbers have always been a part of me, always.
Wow. So
They
even if
intrigue
you
me.
didn't have that additional schooling, it seemed like the business side, you were still going to be able to at least scratch and claw well enough to succeed in that. And so you've obviously grown the company. It's hugely successful. And so a friend of mine, her name is April Budney, and she started the Old Whaling Company basically from her kitchen, and now it's a multi-million-dollar, home and bath products. And and this is a question I love to ask entrepreneurs is like, when did you know you made it? Like, when did you know this was a thing? Because it was obviously working for you. You guys didn't have jobs, and all of a sudden now you have a company. But when did you know you had it? And so when I asked April this, she was making soaps in her kitchen, and I said, "So when did you know?" And she goes, "Once we were given the opportunity to open up a table in the Charleston City market, we knew that if we can get there, that this would be a real company and would explode." And then next thing you know, she's selling her soaps at Whole Foods, and you could buy their candles like all over the planet. When did you know that your company was like, yep, this is a thing?
Well, what happened, we had a partner come in, Jeff Benson, great guy, and he's like, "Look, I can help you get started on floor care and things," because we didn't know anything about using a high-speed buffer or any of the carpet extractor. We didn't know anything on that. We just did the cleaning. We didn't do the commercial type cleaning. And he said, "Look, I can help you with that." So he helped us get the DuPont. We got a contract with DuPont, the same plant my husband's father worked at. He helped us get that. And that's when I realized, oh, wait a minute. Wait, there's a lot of work out there. And so then we started talking to the state, and they were very skeptical of us. They were like, "We don't know anything about you guys." And so they would say, "Okay, give us a price on this building. And if your price is low enough, we'll go ahead and try you there." So we did, we got it. And then they said, "Well, wait a minute, we've got a few more buildings. Would you be interested in doing that?"
They must have liked that number, Rosemary.
They did. I'm afraid they did. That probably hurt us in the long run.
Yeah.
But you're right on that. It's funny because we were very competitive, but we kept our prices really neck and neck with the competition. So a lot of that was, I think, by God's will. But we just went ahead and we just started increasing. And I knew the state contracts were big. So once we got into the state contracts, then we started doing. Now we do also for the hospitals. We've got some contracts with the hospitals. So we're reaching out because what happens, it's hard for them to get reputable people, which I'll get into that part too, reputable people to maintain these satellite facilities. Now, when I say satellite facilities, the Department of Natural Resources with Delaware has little stations all over the place. It's hard to find somebody that will go in the middle of nowhere to keep clean these little buildings. Very difficult. Dealing with the hospitals, they have a lot of satellite places that maybe do x-rays or maybe do different labs or different things. Very hard for them to get a stable company in there. They can get the mom and pops in there, and they will be fine on 1 or 2 buildings. But if they give them more, they can't handle it because they try reaching out and they just can't do it. So what we found is that we have to keep up on the employees. Training is very essential, but we just have to keep on moving with the employees. So we're almost an employment agency also.
Yeah.
I keep joking about that, but it really is true. because right now it's very difficult to get people. And that's what happens to the companies trying to do it now. They can't get the people. So you really have to focus on getting employees and making that a top priority. Once you get, so it makes it nice now because I've delegated enough that I have an operations manager, Jamie, that's doing a fantastic job. And she doesn't have to concentrate on the money part. I have to worry about the money part. She worries about making sure things get done. And she has the same mentality that I do on that it's very important to people on their offices, getting them clean. So she's dedicated and she cares and she really likes doing this. So this has worked out really well, but it's finding the right people, putting in the right place, and really focusing on really separating the job, also having faith in people and to be able to delegate, and also being able to keep an eye on things and saying, okay, pull it back. That they're not going to work. It's not going to work. They got to go.
Rosemary, out of curiosity, did you ever told you so your husband's father about hiring people? Because it turns out that your decision worked out very, very well. Did you ever like, hey, Pops, remember that time you told me not to hire people? I'm doing all right now.
No, I didn't, but I will say this. Mike's dad was so proud of us. He was so proud of what we had both had done, and he couldn't believe it. I should have said that to him, but I didn't. Him and I got along really well, and I thought very highly of him. And I never did say that to him, but I can still, it was a Sunday dinner, I can still hear him saying, son, don't hire your first employee. You're making your worst mistake ever.
Coming from him, he worked for DuPont. He was a company guy. He didn't know, he didn't have that sort of like, I have this running joke, Rosemary, on this podcast that, entrepreneurs are psychopaths because you're willing to take these big risks, and nothing against your father-in-law, but it was just like, he was known, he probably had a nice 9-to-5 job, benefits, pension, which don't even exist anymore. So for you to come to like, hey, I have this idea for a company, I'm going to start hiring people. To him, that you were probably speaking Turkish, like you were speaking another language. So I totally understand where he was coming from. So speaking of Mike, I always take folks behind the dedication of the book, and obviously you dedicate it to your husband, and you say, if you weren't there supporting my crazy ideas, the business would never have taken off. Love you forever. Tell me about this guy. Obviously through thick and thin, 50 plus years of marriage, you even forgot how long you guys have been married, but why was it important to dedicate the book to Mike?
Mike and I had been through so much, which is in the book. Mike and I had been, and he had been right there helping me along the way. Now, he could be a mess. I'm not saying that, because he loved helping people. So I was constantly reining him in. I felt like I was constantly reining him in. Like, okay, where's your priorities? Where exactly? What are you thinking? And a lot of times, if we weren't getting along, because he helped me tremendously dealing with the business. He has a lot of common sense. So we would really sort of bounce things off of each other. And that was very important. So if we were actually angry with each other, I said, okay, let's put our business hats on. We don't have time to be angry with each other. This is what's happening. We've got a contract coming up. I've got a contract I'm trying to get out for you. I need to sit down and go over this with you now. And I said, so let's just forget that you're mad at me and I'm mad at you. Let's just forget it, put our business hats on. And then after we get this all worked out, then we can go back to being mad at each other.
That's great. Great advice for spouses that decide to go into business with each other. And there's plenty of great advice in the book. It's called Made in America, A Journey of Resilience, Determination, and the American Dream. Her name is Rosemary Everton. Rosemary, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Rosemary and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.